some people that call me Eric Garner's mother. Some people call me GWEN CARR. There's no sense in someone else telling it and you being an extra in your own story. And the only way to do that was for me to get out there and speak his name.
Good afternoon and welcome back to My Harlem Portraits, the show that aims at shedding the light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and on Black excellence. Today we have two extremely special guests because they are going to talk about one of the reasons why I started this show. We have with us Miss GWEN CARR, Eric Garner's mother herself, and Brad Bailey, the director of a powerful, timely, and engaging 30-minute Oscar-qualified documentary titled Her Fight, His Name, the story of GWEN CARR and Eric Garner. Welcome to My Harlem Portraits.
Thank you for having us.
I am absolutely honored that you could make it. I know that this documentary is just coming out and we need to share it as much as possible because it hasn't stopped. It's still going on. And as I was telling you before, when I first moved to Harlem, and I was so welcomed by the Harlem community, and I saw my friends, my sisters, that every time their sons were leaving the house, they were constantly looking at the watch and constantly in a state of stress.
Right.
I thought, this is crazy that in this country, the country you built, you have to be scared about your son going to get a carton of milk or going to a friend's house or whatever. That is crazy. So that's one of the main reasons. And to give back to Harlem, because this kind of news, they get to Europe, but not all of them, and not in details. And the only reason why your son was one of the first that really made the news abroad was that it was filmed. And there were 4 policemen on him. And then we had George Floyd. And George Floyd, it was because we were in the pandemic, everybody was watching TV, everybody was paying attention. And so that's why we had all that.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to continue. So GWEN, you unfortunately need no presentation. This film follows you during the many years that you spent seeking justice over the death of your son Eric and your struggle to channel the grief and the anger for his death into a relentless fight for justice and systemic change. How difficult was it for you to relive all those moments making this film?
Well, it was difficult, but I knew it would be necessary because we had to present what is actually happening out here. As you were saying, it's happening far too much to far too many of our children. And a lot of people don't even know to what extent it really goes. There are thousands of mothers out there with sons that's been murdered. They're innocent children who has been murdered. But no one ever heard of them. There was no media. There was nothing in the papers about it. So that's why when I started my fight, I wanted to bring other mothers to the forefront also. So you can see that I'm not the only one. There's not only one Eric Garner. There's many Eric Garners. There's many George Floyds, Trayvon Martins. And when you get a platform, you have to share it. You must let other people know about other people's fights, and that this is not only my fight, it's bigger than me. It's millions, hundreds of thousands of our fights.
And this is the most horrific part of this journey. And we're going to talk about the mothers of the movement later, because that's very important. I saw you 2 years in a row at the National Action Network convention, where all the mothers were, well, many of them, and it was one of the most heartbreaking moments to hear the story.
Yes, yes.
Brad Bailey, you are the first African American to win Student Oscar Gold in documentary for Hale. You are a Harvard University scholar focused on social justice and recently earned a New England Emmy nomination for this documentary we are talking about that you filmed over 6 years. What prompted you to do this documentary?
Oh, the New England Emmy nomination was for a film we did on the Medical Civil Rights Initiative, which Ms. Carr actually was a part of, which focused on medical civil rights and the sort of need to affirm our rights in police encounters, especially with regard to healthcare issues. But with this situation, with this film, we filmed for over 6 years. You know, we started off thinking, I started off thinking it would just be for 3 months, but it was for 6 years. And, but I think that the critical aspect of that was that it was necessary. I think that when you look back over that time period, each part of that, the incarnation of this film was built off the moments that happened before. And so Ms. Carr, you know, part of the aspect of this film is that we were also following breaking news. The major reason I wanted to do this film was that I wanted to understand what happens to major families in the news media, what happens to them when the cameras go away, what happens in the public moments, and what happens in the private moments. And also looking at the ripple effect of these issues, not just in the immediate aftermath, which is what we noticed, but also over time to other family members. What happens to other family members, and what happens to the immediate community in this aftermath over time. And I think that's what I believe we did. So I believe that it took and needed that time, those 6 years, to be able to do that properly. You know, and I think that when people look at this film in the future, they'll be able to see the entirety, hopefully, of Ms. Carr's experience from 2018 to the present day, and can look at that and make their own decisions about what they think these impacts have been on not just her life, but other families that are impacted by these incidents.
Your film and your life, Ms. Carr, is going to be a piece of history and a moment that has created new history in this country. And that's fundamental that you put it in a movie. It's going to be there forever. Unfortunately, since your son's death, Ms. Carr, you lost your granddaughter who was demonstrating in the streets for her father's death, and your husband. And still, you found the strength to form these deep bonds with the mothers of the movement and these women who had lost family to police violence, as you were saying before. And you call this the executive club no one wants to be part of. Exclusive club, sorry, no one wants to be part of. How did you find the strength for that? In part, you told me before, but can you elaborate on that? Because this was amazing too.
Yes. When, I had no idea what I was going to do after my son's death. because this put me in a very dark place. But I decided that I wasn't just going to sit down and just cry my eyes out and do nothing about it. So I decided to get up out of my bed and turn my mourning into a movement, and my sorrow into a strategy. And with this, I came to meet more and more mothers that was around the nation that had the same pain that I had. And I prided myself in like coming together with these mothers, because each one of them had a story, and the stories got worse and worse.
Yeah.
One story was worse than the other. So now we decided that we would get together, because each one of these mothers, a lot of them have their own foundations, they have their own things that they're doing. But for me, I bring them together like once or twice a year, and we encourage, we empower, we enlighten each other. And I try to give them a weekend of, not being so heavily burdened by these tragedies. We know the tragedy, but we want to talk about the good times that we had with our children. We want to talk about how funny there was, what was their favorite sports, how silly they were. And this sometimes takes a burden. I told some mothers who aren't where I am that sometimes you just have to let loose, because we sometimes feel guilty that our children are gone, which is no fault of our own, but this just sets in. If I had been there this day, what I could have done for them. And we bring all of this to the forefront. I have a gala every year that I invite the mothers, where they can get dressed up, where they can just, look their best and just have a great time. I'm still trying to get funds together where we could have massages and manicures, things that, self-care. That's a very important part of your healing. And bringing these mothers together is part of my therapy, thoughts, part of my healing, because they can enlighten me as well as I can enlighten them.
And this, Brad, I must say, is something that is very important in your documentary, because I met Miss Carr at National Action Network, and every time I met her, she was just the strong woman. And I always ask myself, how does she do that? I didn't know all the years before she started to really react and get out of her grief. I had no idea about that. And I think it's very important that you show that, because not everybody can get that strength immediately. So to see that she went through that and reacted is very important. Very important. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
How did you decided to start from that, from the grief before?
Sure. Well, we wanted a piece that was rooted in oral history. At the end of the day, I'm an oral historian. And so we realized that this particular piece, even though it would be a piece of journalism somewhat, or a piece of film, we wanted it most importantly to be of oral history. We wanted everything to be from Ms. Carr's perspective. So instead of talking to experts, which some people do, which is fine, but people go to experts or to other people's opinions and things like that. In this film, I didn't want any of that. If it did not happen from her first person perspective, for me, it didn't happen in this film. We did not put it in this film. Yeah. And I wanted that to be the focus on it. I wanted the audience to identify with her thoughts and the way she moved through the world first. And so that's how we did it. We sort of rooted the piece in oral history methodology by using memory as her photos in her house as a form of memory. And by doing so, we want to sort of map over the years how Miss Carr works with those photos and works with memory to be able to do the things that she does. She uses the relaxation trick to be able to focus on photos and to be able to do that. And the great challenge for a filmmaker is, how do you show that on screen? How do you portray that on screen? And so that's what we spent years trying to figure out. And I guess we finally did it, hopefully, to be able to show that there's many different ways to represent memory and grief and how one processes that on screen. As a filmmaker, as an oral historian, we want to we went to lots of people who do these things, but we realized there isn't a one size fits all to how you do it. Mm-hmm. And so as a filmmaker, we had to sort of create our own strategy in order to do that. And I hope that we did that properly.
You did, definitely. Ms. Carr, in your fight, you challenged the NYPD and former New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, demanding accountability, not only for Pantaleo, but also for the other officers involved in your son's death. Tell us, how did you do that? Take on NYPD.
Well, I was very angry about what had happened with my son as well as others, and I decided, hey, I want accountability. I want more transparency. So the only way to really be effective, I think, is to be up in their face.
Yes.
I decided to go to the town meetings that they were having, and I says, I'm going to confront Mayor de Blasio, and then I asked to have a meeting with the commissioner, and I told him exactly how I felt. Although the new commissioner that we had, he wasn't really listening to me, but I said, I'm going to get my thoughts out there, and I'm going to tell him what I think about him, and this won't be through the media, it'll be face to face. And that's how I believe in confronting things face to face, because I don't believe in writing letters. I don't believe in doing emails, because we know those get trashed. Yeah. And when I used to go to Albany trying to get bills passed, which I did get the Eric Garner anti-chokehold bill passed, but that was by going up to Albany, going and getting up in the cold with other mothers, and going and confronting the situation, talking to lawmakers. And we got the executive order for the special prosecutor by doing that. So I felt like I really felt like it was strength in numbers.
Absolutely.
When us went together and we brought makeshift coffins. We used a lot of strategies that was behind the camera that people never saw. And we set these coffins in front of Governor Cuomo's office and said, what are you going to do about all these bodies? We need a special prosecutor. So then he promised us, if his bill didn't get passed in session, he would give us a special prosecutor for an executive order for a prosecutor, which he did, but it was still a little fight behind that. And he wanted to sign something that was a watered down bill, and we wouldn't let him do that. So we said, we'll take it home and we'll let our lawyers look at it and bring it back the next day. So he told us, he said, but if I have a heart attack and die tonight, the next governor is not going to sign it.
Wow. I
remember Miss Baez just pointed her finger at him and said, you just don't die.
Stay alive now.
Don't die. And so we did get that done. And then we had, now the next day when we went up there was a bunch of media that we didn't expect. But everybody was there. We were on the front line, and he signed the executive order, and later on gave me one that was framed with the supposedly pen that signed it. So we think that was a victory.
And that was a victory. How did you feel also, Brad, about that? This was in June 2020 that it was signed.
Mm-hmm, that's right. So I felt very good about that. I felt that was the chokehold bill that was signed in 2020. The executive order was signed in 2015 or 16, I think it was. I have to put that one there. But you did get several bills signed, and it was all through like pressing forward. It's not all about being in front of the cameras. When you're serious, you do things in front of the cameras, behind the cameras. You got to try to open doors or try to kick them down when they close them in your face.
Absolutely. And Brad, you were a testimony of this. How did you feel to be there in these moments? Because this anti-chokehold, this is called the Eric Garner Anti-Chokehold Act, which was signed into law in New York State Legislature by Governor Cuomo. And it's very important because it's a law that is being used to prevent other people from doing that. Although we saw that lately someone did that and was invited by the president that will come. Let's not talk about that.
I think that looking at what we filmed with Ms. Carr, looking at not just what she did privately, but looking at her public achievements.
Yes.
That was really one of the things we want to end the piece with, and I think that we did, showing that this wasn't just one woman who dealt with one particular experience. She used that and went out and not only tried to save the lives of her local family and local community. She's trying to save the lives of other families and other communities and other people that she has never met, and children who have not even been born yet. It's women and men who have not been born yet, and that's part of her legacy. That's part of what she's doing to help save people's lives. And not just to be a beacon of sort of hope in New York State, but also to hope that radiates out. And I think that in the upcoming era that we're about to enter, one of the great things I hope about this film and Ms. Carr that people realize is that people can make change. People don't have to be fearful or nervous, even if you're fearful or nervous about what you're about to enter, that you have the ability potentially to make change and to do something about it. Yeah. That you don't have to sit and sort of just wait for something to happen to you. You can be proactive and organize and get things done. And I think that's the most important thing, that we're not in this democracy that we do have, that we all have individual power.
Yes.
And I think that's the major lesson here.
Very, very important. What do you hope for the future, Ms. Carr, of this country and of this terrible subject?
My hope is, and my prayers are, that this become a safer nation for everyone. I don't think anyone should have to walk in fear just because of the color of their skin, just because that you're a black male, or for any reason, and you're not doing anything wrong. So I'm just hoping we get a safer nation where everyone could just relax, which I know that's a long time coming, but we're still going to fight for that.
And this is very important. And how important has it been for you? Because you are always, every Saturday, at the National Action Network, and you're always present and always fighting with National Action Network and Reverend Al Sharpton. How important has this collaboration been for you?
Yes, it's been very important. And I still go to the National Action Network because Reverend Sharpton is a strong man. He always have good information. He's a Black history historian who could tell you how it happened, when it happened, even though sometimes you get the story wrong from other people.
Yep.
And but most of that, he was there. Reverend Daughtry, the old historian, they were there, and you could get information. And it's going there is not only about police brutality. There's so many other things there that they do. They help the homeless, they feed the hungry. They have different organizations that you can join. So all of this is important, and this is news that I can bring back to others. And when they are in trouble, I could tell them, well, call so and so. They work for National Action Network, and they can help direct you in the right path. So since my fight 10 years ago, I felt it important to stay on the battlefield. And one of the ways to stay on the battlefield is stay going to National Action Network.
Yes. And I am a member of National Action Network for years, and that's one of the organization that has also guided me in doing this. He's someone and I went to the march in Washington when the orange thing was put in the White House, so I'm following that. So I see you every Saturday. If I'm not there, I see you on TV every Saturday.
Yes, I think that it's important, and I do enjoy going up there because I know I'm going to get a lesson. And there's many people there that I became very fond of, and just seeing them every Saturday, it helps me.
Yes, it's a family.
Yes.
Brad, last question to you. What do you wish for this documentary?
Well, I hope that, the goal of it, and some of the work I do is for it's, like I said, to get out there and to inspire people to make change in their own lives. And so, and that's it, to get out there and show, hopefully as a piece of work that can show and illustrate in this particular time here we're in, how one person was able to make significant change. And I hope that the film serves as a procedural to be able to get out there and inspire individuals, inspire civic groups, inspire activist groups, inspire communities, inspire whomever to get out there and realize that, and not just to be educated, but to be inspired, and that's the most important thing. I'm an educator at heart, and this film is a tool of education. And that's what I hope that it needs to be, and not just strictly for African American communities, but universally, and not just all over America, but around the world. We've been getting input from people around the world with this film, and I hope that continues to be the case. So that people can understand that this is about one mother's love and one family's love for each other, and how they try to move on through the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Carr. Thank you.
And thank you.
I am honored and so really happy that we did this.
Yes, me too.
It's been a long time coming. I really wanted to interview for a long time. So I'm glad I did it in this contest of a beautiful documentary about your fight. Thank you for doing this, both of you. Thank you to my viewers. See you next Saturday, 12:30 p.m., Spectrum, channel 1993. And for the past episodes, go to my YouTube channel, My Harlem Portraits. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now.